What if the difficult parts of your child's personality were actually hidden strengths waiting to be unlocked? We're going to go through 7 key steps to remove the confusion and give you a head start on solving that nature-driven impulse. What am I talking about here? There are 2 things at play. 1, nature, that's your genetics. And 2, nurture, that's the influences from our parents, our environment, our friends, our social circles. We're talking about difficult moments, tantrums, impulsive behavior, compulsive behavior. That's the nature you're experiencing. Don't dismiss it as being bad. It's just merely the inbuilt patterns that are waiting to be trained. Of course, it's confusing as to what to do. I'm in the same bracket, still feeling it out, still trying to work out what things to keep and what things to discard, what things to train and what things to remove. But what I find works best is that you have a great intention to build a solid foundation for your children that brings about joy and a life full of fulfillment. You would think that in turn gives you fulfillment as well, right? So step number 1, acknowledge and validate. As they go through these temper tantrums, acknowledging and validating their emotions is absolutely key. Here's why. They need us to show them that they're going to be all right, that the things they're experiencing aren't just to be put on the side or shelved, but are actually meant to be addressed, assessed, and redirected. Even as young children, they're going to feel so much and they really need you to listen up, understand as best as possible, interpret the information, and to guide them in the right direction. That means really listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Understand their feelings by feeling what they're going through as well. Yeah, sorry guys, feelings do really exist. Albeit very easy to just say, sit down, be quiet, don't do anything more. It's so fulfilling to watch those tears fade away and the smile begin to erupt when you get this right. The best way I found to validate is through conversation, showing an inquiry into what is going on. It may seem obvious on the out that they're going through something very physical, but what they're actually going through is something more emotional and visceral. By active listening, asking questions and listening to the answers, a lot of the time, holding in the arms, eye contact, this kinds of thing, softening your demeanor, you're actually inviting them to open up about what's truly going on for them. This may be painful or uncomfortable at the time, but remember, it's their future success you're building. So go ahead, wait for the catastrophe to occur, ask the questions, provide the solutions, put it into motion. Step number 2, gradual exposure. What the heck is that? It's where you gradually expose them to things that they find difficult. Despite my best efforts to bring my kids up to my high expectations, it really just doesn't work. You've got to taper in. So when you see a social difficulty or a challenge that they just can't overcome, it's about increasing the difficulty slowly over time with new skills, empathy, caring, strategy. Of course, they're not going to know this at the time. It's your job to keep track of where things are at in the progress meter. An example of this, my baby girl had trouble saying goodbye when her visit was over. She was always brought to tears, not wanting to go home. Broke my heart, really. I would take a moment to sit with her in her anguish, reassure her how much I loved her, and reinforce that we'd be together again soon. I'd even go so far to say, imagine what it's going to be like when we're together again soon. The hugs, the kisses, the joys, the food, the carrying on, all of that cool stuff. Well, to my surprise, she initially fobbed me right off and continued with the crying cycle. At this point, it'd be really easy to dismiss her. Maybe I was late for something. I could just pacify her by saying, come on, get it together, stop it, be quiet. But I'd learned in the past that that was a terrible mistake. So instead, I flipped the script. I thought, I'm going to acknowledge what she's feeling, I'm going to listen to what she's saying, and I'm going to validate the fact that she's got emotions going on. I'm going to understand where she's at. What I noticed is that she wanted to feel loved. She didn't want to feel rejected or abandoned. So with that, I moved back into the reassurance, kissing her forehead, hugging her tightly, reinforcing with positive words. And these are the precise words that I absolutely use. I use it often in different scenarios, but for this particular scenario, it was an absolute game changer. I will always be here for you. Your daddy loves you. Initially, her fear of losing me overcame her rational thinking, but then I'd moved her past that by easing her into the idea that this was just part of the process and that we'd be together again soon and enjoying each other's company. I've used this tone with her for years and it's built a great connection. Try this with your kids whenever they're feeling like they've lost something or there's an injustice going on. I think it'll work wonders. Step number 3, positive reinforcement. This is where you compliment your child on the things that they do well. I know what you're thinking, everyone gets a prize. No, it's not that kind of scenario. I use this tool as a way to show that I'm paying attention, that I'm interested in what they're doing, that I care. I'm not using this as an ego-boosting trip to megalomania. For example, small skills like eating well, playing well, and other first steps. Bathing, reading, writing, and sports. All different skills that you've got to learn through life. Why this works so well is because it lets your kids know that they're on the right track, breaks down that impulse to just quit when it gets difficult. Sure, they might still try to quit. Keep going with the positive reinforcement. Keep going with the benefits. Keep going with all of that kind of stuff. Persist. But of course, bring it back to step number 1, acknowledge and validate, because maybe what you're trying to do isn't right for them, and that's something you've got to work out along the way as well. Step number 4, modeling the behavior you wish to see in your child. Now, this is a tough one. Ever heard the saying, do as I say, not as I do? That's something I heard a lot of, and it confused the heck out of me, but now I understand it, because intellectually, parents know what they should be doing, but often don't fulfill that. And that's the problem. What we really need to be looking at is doing the thing that we want from our kids. A massive, massive conversational point these days is screen time. So when I read up on the effects of screen time and whether or not I wanted that for my child, I realized I too was putting myself through screen time. So I had to make a choice. If I want them to comply with the limitations I put on them for this particular thing, I also have to put the limitations upon that for myself. What I found is that our connection together became even more solid. I wasn't disconnected when they wanted my attention. Boom, I was there. What I do use that beautiful device for is researching and creativity, which I involve them heavily in, which is a great recommendation when it comes to screen time. The long and the short of it is, if you want them to be good at certain things, you too need to show that you care and want to be good at them as well. Don't expect them to just do it because you've dictated. Young kids, they're smart. They know, hey, mom and dad aren't doing it, why should I? And they have questioned me on this so many times. I've been stuck in the corner with no real justification. If you'd like to know where I got that information on devices, check out the book, What's Good for Your Kids by Dr. Norman Swan. There'll be a link in the description. Now this goes for many other things, such as when you open the door and walk through it, shut the door again. When you're in the room and the light goes on, when you leave, turn the light off again, tidying your room, those kinds of things. So if they come into my room and the door's open, the air conditioning's on and it's being wasted and my bed's a mess, how can I expect them to model what I'm saying if I'm not doing it myself? And then of course, when they do a good job, I go back to point number 3, positive reinforcement. You see how this all ties in together? It's magical, right? Now, of course, if they don't know how to do the things you're talking about, you do it with them. It's a learning process. That brings them right back to the connection that they've got with you, which is a nurturing component, which I absolutely love. You're going to be the beneficiary of the outcome along with them. Man, that's powerful. Alrighty, step number 6, creating an open home environment. This is a tough one. As they get older, they will start to hide things from you based on your behaviors, based on the way you've taught them. They know what you do and don't want them to do, but they're gonna stray from that. That's their nature kicking in, and they've got their own little ideas about how they want to live life. Don't take that personally. I have in the past. It was an absolute misery of a mistake. Don't wish that on anyone. Instead, go back to step number 1 in this particular instance, understand the feelings, the thoughts, and the outcomes that they provided, which went against your word. When you do this and create that open communication, when they feel like and know like they've done something wrong, they're also going to feel that they can speak to you about it because there's no threat of being absolutely punished. I grew up in that environment. It worked to a point. But the thing is, there's a disconnect in the communication because of that. Sure, I complied and did what I was told, but I never really learned the lesson. I never really had the nurturing component that came with it and the skills. Once again, flipping the script. I take great pride and joy in knowing that my kids will think differently than I. They'll have different opinions and they'll tell me so. Wow. Some of the stuff that I've heard coming at me, absolutely not on back in the 90s, but in the modern age where we want to provide openness, we want to provide security and togetherness in a different way, we have to be willing to tolerate some verbal mistakes, some physical mistakes, which then too provides an opportunity for you, the parent, to coach and mentor the child through these mistakes. Whether it be speaking out of turn, wrong volume, messing the room up with no sense of cleaning it up, whether they swear for the first time and it's in front of a room of respectable people that you would rather not have that happen. What I've learned contrasting my childhood with my kids' childhood is that children are going to be who they are. And it's up to us to acknowledge that who they are, the nature, and then to nurture them through the errors, the mistakes, and the steps, and find systems and strategies that help them form autonomous behaviors so that they learn skills and hopefully prevent some of the errors that we spoke on today. Step number 6, and this is huge, this is a personal one to me, encouraging the exploration of interests. Now, growing up, I love sports, I love music, I love culture, I love dance. This was not something that my lineage came from. It was sports, politics. Well, what about my interests of culture and music and dance and all that kind of thing? Let me tell you, it feels absolutely demoralizing when you look up in the stands at your cello recital and you see your parents having a sleep. Sure, they might be hardworking and all the rest of it, but when your child sees you disinterested on your phone, talking to someone else while it's your time to shine, all it does is sends a message that I don't care. Maybe that's not your intention, but let me tell you, it leaves an indelible print. Instead, leave a different print where, sure, you might not have an interest or understand the things that your child's interested in, but the beauty of the internet is you can do research, you can learn about it, you can thrust yourself into the process that they're going through and actually create a bond over that medium. You might even surprise yourself and find, hey, I'm really interested in this. I just didn't really understand it, what I was looking at. Now it's actually kind of cool. Moreover, when they speak to you about their interests that you might not be so interested in, really immerse yourself in the conversation. Try to pick up on all the little jargon, the explanations. Try and experience it as if you're experiencing what they're talking about through their eyes. When you do this, it's going back to number 1, acknowledge and validate, and that brings you guys closer together. That's really what you want, right? Now, if you think about it, we're not really talking about being interested in someone else's interest. We're talking about being interested in someone else. And what that says is, Mummy and Daddy love me. They think I'm worth something. They think that what I do is worth caring about. That's the thing that we need to interpret with this kind of stuff. There are long-term effects that you really want to invest in, which is you're going to understand the nature, the traits of your child, which in turn will allow you to guide and mold them through the different difficulties that they're going to have in their life, which in turn reduces the level of friction during conflict, different arguments, decisions about what subjects to choose at school, what careers to take on. I can tell you, no one wants to have the argument with their parent about whether or not they're making the right decision for a job or a career choice. And because you've built up that trust by showing an interest over time, they'll actually be open to your suggestions if you do find a better way, despite the fact that they're so single-minded on this one career path or one subject choice. And because of that, they're going to be open to new ideas which could really benefit them both in the moment and in the future. They will thank you for it. The key to this is get in early. Don't be fake about it. Don't show up to the dance lessons and then be on your phone or chatting with your friends and at the end saying, oh my God, you were amazing, in a really fake kind of way. Actually see what you're looking at and appreciate what you're looking at. Show up from week to week and notice the progress, and then you can make your comments. If you fail to do this, they will not trust you. They will fail to take your advice and the friction level will rise at every little difficult point. And step number 7, mindfulness and emotional regulation. Now this is huge. They say the terrible twos, they say the teens. I say it's all potential for havoc and it's all potential for joy. It's all about how you broach your parenting journey from the very get-go all the way through until you move into the next life. Part of that is being emotionally intelligent, which means knowing what's going on for you, mitigating the anxieties, the fears, the pressures, so that you can hear what the child is going through and then coach them through the same process. This is kind of a difficult one because it's not a linear progression. It's not a black and white scenario. Sometimes emotions present this way for one scenario, and then the very next day, the same scenario comes up and those emotions are no longer there. What changed? I don't know, it's hard to see. We can't see it. And in fact, it's really likely they won't understand what's going on too. And because of that, being present, acknowledging, validating, supporting, positive reinforcement, all that good stuff is super important when you want to get some really difficult things done. So your child's crying, or they're complaining, or they're having a tantrum, and you think you know what's up, but you haven't done those other things, and you're getting yourself into a tizzy as well. Well, it's about time that you take a deep breath. Take a nice, long, deep breath, maybe even 5, get yourself back to center and start inquiring. The truth is, when you're dealing with emotional outbursts, you're not really in charge. It's them, and it's up to you to understand it's their way that you've got to follow. Yes, you're the guiding light. You're the one hoping to bring them to the place of paradise and out of the turmoil, but they're the one in charge essentially. They're not making a conscious choice to piss you off, to get under your skin. What they're really saying is, I need help. Please get me out of this mess. Let me tell you about one of these moments, how it went down. I bring this up because I'm super proud of what happened. Today, it was a crazy moment with my daughter. She was super unsettled. She'd had a really hard day at school. She's just started school. So naturally, I'm concerned because she's my little girl. She's my pride and joy. I want the best for her, but I also know she's got a temper. So I'm curious, what the heck is going on? Turns out she had a little tiff with her friends at school. Friendship is something that really triggers her. If she doesn't have friends, she feels bad because meeting people in the gym was difficult, meeting people at dancing was difficult, and so she found some friends. It kind of broke her spirit when she had this fight. She's not socially skilled as much as maybe her older siblings would be. She didn't know what to do. She came home, she was acting out the tantrums, and I'm going, this isn't your usual after school sort of meltdown. There's something else going on. So I found out. Another interesting thing was, as I tried to tease out of her what was going on, the tears are streaming down her face. And she was like desperate to leave and put herself in isolation in the room. I'm like, this ain't good. I'm really concerned for this little girl. I acknowledged and validated, and I let her do so for 5 minutes. I told her, I said, okay, have 5 minutes, and then afterwards I want to hang out with you and find out what's going on, and let's work on it together. She went in the room, continued crying. I'm going, there's sadness in here. There's sorrow. So the 5 minutes had finished and brought her back to the couch where I was, and I started my inquiry. I found out she'd had a problem with her friends. And then just those moments of her being able to express what she was going through, my hand gently caressing her face, calming her by saying, it's going to be all right. You're going to be fine. We're here together. Let's get this done. That kind of stuff. It eventually brought her demeanor down to a nicer, calmer, still a little bit sort of emotionally high, but enough that I could say, all right, come on, let's do some breathing. And she breathed it out, brought herself right back to that center point. That was huge because I could see in her face, in her heart, in her body, that she was going through something critical to her being. And if I had been that old school mentality, sit still, be quiet, I never would have understood how important having friends to her actually is. So whether or not you come from a culture that embraces emotions or not, some children are sensitive. And if they are, you need to change your mindset about how you deal with them. This 30-minute long encounter really made my day. It really made me feel like a good parent. And when you have kids, isn't that the number one thing that's on your list? You want to feel like a good parent. You want to feel like you're doing a good job. So a bit of a call to action here. Next time your child is going through a tantrum, a meltdown, nurture them back to center. Have a list of different techniques that you can use, whether it's touch, whether it's sound, whether it's a calming voice, whether it's breath work, whether it's positive reinforcement. All of those kinds of things are going to help them get back to that center point so they can solve it emotionally in their heart and their body, and they can get back on track with their life. Don't confuse this for pandering. Don't just give in to any little whim. You want to guide them through the difficulty into that place of paradise, which is ultimately emotional security. Don't just pacify them with chocolate or video games or devices or any of that kind of stuff. Show them that there's an issue that they should be dealing with and help them deal with it through conversation. As you can tell, this means a heck of a lot to me. So, as always, I put together a newsletter to go with this video. And if you want to get access to that newsletter, click the link in the description below, and you can see all of the extra and exclusive resources I've put together on these topics. For me, they're a game changer. They've allowed me to get a heck of a lot more done in a hell of a lot less time, to feel more calm, more resilient, and more powerful as a dad and as a parent. Now, here's a little bonus. A little bit of stuff for you, mum and dad. Did you know that your own mindset has a huge role to play? Don't neglect yourself in this process. You deserve to have that awesomeness as well. A little takeaway that I realized after many years of being a dad was, when you believe your child can grow and change, they will. So believe in their potential. You are truly a powerful part of their nurture, their guiding light from the start of life all the way through to wherever it is that they go. To believe in your kids sets you free of the missteps from the past. To me, that's the reason the nature-nurture debate even exists. Because we're trying to work out how to do a better job. So we have nature, we leverage nurture, which is the guiding light, put it into place, create a new and better way with every generation. To do this, get a sense of what is good inside of you and nurture it as well. It's tougher than it looks. That's why I bring it up, because we have these things called blind spots. You can't necessarily see all the things you're doing really well and the things you're not doing so well. But I can tell you, this is a tremendous payoff. Just imagine this real quick. In fact, I imagine these kinds of things frequently, and I advise you to do so. Imagine your child walking into a room filled with their peers, their head held high, ready to embrace the world. That's because of you. In part, that's because of your DNA, and in part, that's because of the guiding light that you had shining over their life throughout the years. And that well-being and success you want for your child, it'll come through your consistent efforts of the nurturing. Like I said, go deeper in this, check out my newsletter, links in the description. And if you think that understanding your child better is something that you want to know more about, check out this next video.